On October 723, Hamas brought shame upon Islam by exploding the boundaries of horror. This massacre awakened the darkest and most violent impulses in men, to the point that some now question the existence of Israel. Therefore, I invite you to take just a few minutes, for you will discover the story of life against death.
My friend Samuel explained to me that Israel was the land of his ancestors because he is Jewish. Is that true? Is there proof of this?
If we are talking about the beliefs in the Bible, there is no proof in the historical sense, but Jews, Christians, and Muslims believe in it. I will explain it to you, and then we will talk about historical facts.
Abraham, leave Haran and go to Canaan, which I offer to your descendant. To Jacob, Abraham's grandson, you have defeated the angel after a night of battle, so from now on you will be called Israel, which means one who fights with God. Moses, the descendants of your ancestor, Joseph and his family, have been enslaved by Pharaoh. You must lead them to Canaan, the land of milk and honey that was promised to Abraham.
So for you, the exodus from Egypt is not recognized by historians. So from when does history recognize our ancestors' presence in the land?
The kings, David and Solomon, probably existed, with the first temple ordered by Solomon, but we can certainly date the existence of the kingdoms of Judah and Israel for the year 700 BC.
My son, you belong to the tribe of Judah. You are a Jew living in the kingdom of Judah. God promised this land to Abraham, but the kingdom of Israel is unstable and idolatry is frequent.
I, Nebuchadnezzar, order the exile of the Jews to Babylon. The kingdom of Judah is defeated, and the temple of Solomon is destroyed.
Upon returning from Babylonian exile, Zerubbabel and Joshua begin the construction of the Second Temple. Herod the Great will embellish it at the end of this millennium. Ezra will play a crucial role in the transmission of Jewish law.
I, Titus, order the destruction of Jerusalem and its Second Temple.
Rome does not know that the world's largest religion is being born within it.
Bar Kokhba, our leader, we will fight the Romans with you.
Soldiers, our orders from Rome are to crush the Jewish revolt and expel these rebels from this Roman land.
Exodus. Emperor Hadrian reowned this region Palestine after the Philistines, invaders, and ordered the destruction of the Jerusalem.
So the Romans drove out the Jews and the followers of Christ because they would not surrender, and the Jews were dispersed across the world.
This is the diaspora, and the Jews, as a small minority, become prey for rulers. Whenever they have a problem, they accuse the Jews of being responsible. This is called scapegoating.
You have to find someone to blame to explain people's misfortunes, so they accuse the Jew.
You mean that all peoples act unfairly and it is always the Jews who pay for others or are blamed for an event for which no one is responsible? Was it like this everywhere and for centuries?
People often believe those who govern them. The ones most responsible are typically the rulers. I will give you examples of how Jews have been treated, but it varies over time and depending on the country and its culture.
I vow to pay taxes, return to the ghetto at night, bow before Muslims, wear the mandatory clothing, and lend money to the master.
Lord, they want to massacre the Jews, but you promised them your protection.
I know, but they are too greedy, and my people are too poor, while they enrich themselves.
Rabbi Maimonides, what should we do?
Conversion to Islam is better than death.
Jews must convert, leave, or die.
The Crusaders, seeing the Jews as the murderers of Christ, considered them enemies to be eradicated. Thousands of Jews were killed, their properties pillaged, and their synagogues destroyed. Villagers, the Jews have poisoned the water. They will pay for this. The plague and child murders are now blamed on us. We will have to leave this host country. Charles VI will decide the new exodus for the Jews.
1394, I, representing King Charles VI by royal decree, order he expulsion of the Jews from France.
The persecuted Jews are always searching for a more welcoming country. They are the wandering Jew. In Poland, in the shtetls, Jews live in poverty and humiliation. In Russia, the sad word pogrom, which means destruction, will be discovered.
So they never managed to be accepted with the same rights. Could some still stay in Palestine? Or were they replaced by other peoples?
Palestine was dominated by the Byzantine, then the Arabs in the 7th century, the Crusaders in the 10th century, then Saladin, the Mamelukes and the Ottoman Empire, the Turks in the 12th century. And at the end of World War I, the Turks were defeated, and the League of Nations entrusted the region to England.
Jewish community in Palestine was already well established. In Jerusalem, there were about 5,000 people, almost all Jews and a few Christians. In 1695, everyone knew that the origin of the country was Jewish. Most villages had names of Jewish origin. Around 550 people lived in Gaza, half of whom were Jews and the other half Christians. Jews succeeded in agriculture, especially in cultivating the vines, olives, and wheat, while Christians were involved in trade. 18th century, Palestine is arid and deserted. The towns are small and the Jewish population still significant. The Jewish population before independence is called the Yishuv, and the waves of immigration in 20th century will constitute the new Yishuv.
Dad, how will Jews manage if they are persecuted everywhere? Why are there so many Christian, Muslim, Buddhist countries, and not a single Jewish state where they could live in peace?
That's why Zionism was born. It was a movement with the goal of creating a Jewish state in Palestine. Zion is the hill in Jerusalem where David's citadel was built in antiquity.
Do the Jews have the right to their home in Palestine? The Jews have been persecuted everywhere throughout the times. A Jewish home in Palestine is needed beside an Arab state. Next year in Jerusalem. This is the annual saying that defines the Zionist movement. At the beginning of the 19th century, a rabbi, Yehuda Bibas, mobilized the Jews of North Africa. As a result, several thousand Jews founded the community of Jaffa, a city devastated by the plague and Napoleon's campaign.
Our movement has chosen our ancestral land to create a Jewish country.
5 major waves of Jewish immigration will be observed between 1880 and 1940. This land is yours and registered with the land registry. Everything is in order.
The myth of stolen lands, everything was legalized. A small percentage of lands was abandoned by their owners, who responded to the call of the Arab countries.
Redemption through working the land, fighting malaria, and searching for drinkable water. The battle will be won in this kibbutz. The Jews bring new irrigation techniques. It is in the cities that new arrivals create jobs, especially in construction. Working on the land attracts only a small number of immigrants. Jewish immigration generates jobs and the virtuous cycle of economic development. At the same time, we owe to Ben Yehuda the renewal of Hebrew, previously reserved exclusively for prayers. The cities are being built, and the farmlands expand at the expense of sands and marshes.
From the moment Jews decided to return to their land, the whole world should have been happy to see them leave since they never liked them, and the Jews remaining in Palestine must have greeted them warmly, so everything should have gone well.
Alas, no. Arabs had settled in this region, and the Mufti of Jerusalem, who was the religious authority of this region, asked Arabs to boycott Jews, refused to let them disembark or to sell them land. It was the Mufti who invited Arabs to attack Jews out of pure hatred for them.
You must stop the Jews from disembarking here and to sell them land. Do you understand?
November 2nd, 1917, the Balfour Declaration envisions a Jewish home in Palestine. The League of Nations, future UN, gave the British a mandate on July 24, 1922, to govern Palestine, thereby replacing the Ottoman Empire, defeated during World War I. This provided an opportunity for Europe to gain a foothold in the Middle East through economic, consular, and religious missions.
I will take Syria, Lebanon, and a piece of Turkey.
And I will take Jordan, Iraq, and Kuwait.
The Hebron Revolt in 1929 was of unprecedented violence, resulting in the definitive eradication of the Jewish community. The Peel Report recommends population transfers to separate the communities. We came from far lands to find work, and we cannot find any. Even in the countryside, there is little land to cultivate. As you can see, this revolt of 1936 has continued for 3 years. The White Paper of 22, and even that of 1930, with its new restrictions, were not enough.
Limit Jewish immigration to 75,000 over 5 years and restrict land sales.
So the Jews return in large numbers to reclaim their land. Is that the end of the story?
Unfortunately, no, because in parallel, the final solution is being prepared in Germany. We must now go back to 1920 to understand.
Yes, my commander. We will seek reparations for the humiliation of the Treaty of Versailles. We will fight the Jews who dominate the world.
After the failed coup of 1923, it was in prison that Hitler wrote the infamous Mein Kampf.
Intimidations, threats, murders, and arson enable Hitler to get elected and to promulgate the first Nuremberg Law to limit the rights of Jews.
The Führer ordered the final solution. Let's recap each of your missions.
I will manage the camps, Auschwitz, Dachau, Treblinka, etc.
I will take care of train logistics and Zyklin B pallets.
I will handle the census of Jews in each country and organize the roundups.
I will manage propaganda to ensure local populations collaborate effectively.
Dirty Jew, get out of our country. Go to hell.
Innocent people are rounded up and are sent away to suffer in hellish conditions. Women, children, the elderly.
Search every building, every apartment, and fill these trucks with Jews. They have no place here.
The Veldheaver Roundup in Paris in July 1942. As in all occupied countries, the extermination industry is put in place in the death camps. It is the final solution to make the Jewish people disappear. Barely off the trains, Jews were sent to showers for disinfection. Once inside, the doors were sealed, and Zyklon B pellets were released to produce a fatally toxic gas in the air. This was called the gas chamber. The gassed Jews were then cremated in ovens, and it was the Jews themselves who were forced to do this work. This meant that there were no bodies to take up space, no digging of graves, and even better, it left no trace. Jews were used as human guinea pigs for medical experiments, especially done on twins, conducted by Joseph Mengele, nicknamed the Angel of Death.
Mr. Ambassador, when will the FAR receive me to go over our action against the Jews? Mufti Said, come see our plan in Berlin this year 1941. The FAR will receive you in November.
Under the leadership of the Mufti of Jerusalem, the 13th Waffen-SS Mountain Division Handschar was composed of Bosnian Muslims. The Mufti facilitated Nazi propaganda in Arab countries.
So Jews still do not defend themselves. And at the same time, the Mufti asks Hitler for the final solution in Palestine.
No one has the right to judge the behavior of Jews. Yes, the Mufti would have liked a final solution in Palestine. Hitler exterminated 6 million Jews. This is the Shoah.
We have left the death camps to go to our promised land. Let us pass. It is the only place where we can live without persecution.
The Patria, a ship of Aliyah Bet, clandestine immigration, transporting 850 Jewish refugees, ran aground on a sandbank near Tel Aviv. The passengers were interned in a camp. 29 November, Mini UN sharing plan, yellow Syria, the Jewish state, green areas the Arab. Egypt, Jordan, Iraq, Syria, and Lebanon have massed their troops at the border. Jerusalem and Jewish villages are besieged and starving. We must unite Haganah, Irgun, and Lehi to have a chance to get out of this once the British troops leave.
We need to launch Plan Dalet, informing civilian populations that it is about securing, not expelling villagers. We know we will be attacked from outside and inside since population transfers have not taken place.
Watch out, fighters await us hidden behind women and children.
But there are only civilians.
My God, we made a mistake. The Jews massacre the whole village. We plead guilty to this crime against humanity.
Dear compatriots, on this May 14th, 1948, I proclaim the independence of the State of Israel. Our Arab neighbors mass their troops at the border. Let us be ready for combat.
The Egyptians landed in Gaza, where they expelled 50% of the Jews who lived there and a large portion of the 40s of Christians. Egypt settled all the Muslim Brotherhood members who were causing trouble in Egypt there. Meanwhile, Jordan invaded Judea, Samaria, and part of Jerusalem, where they destroyed 50 synagogues and expelled the Jews. March 10th, 1949, Israel signs the ceasefire and the end of the War of Independence. Every Jew in the world has the right to Israeli nationality if they apply for it. It is the legitimate right of return to the land of our ancestors. Israel is a true parliamentary democracy, and in 1966, Arabs indisputably gained the same rights as Jews. Israel is an example of a melting pot and living together. Religion also has its place there.
Is it finally the end of the story? They lived happily ever after and had many children.
Arab states still seek the destruction of Israel. It is even Article 1 of the Hamas Charter. What follows is a long period of attacks, wars, and difficult negotiations.
Israel will have to face 3 wars with neighboring countries. The Suez War in 19th, the Six-Day War in 19th, and the Yom Kippur War in 1973. In 1986, the opportunity to achieve peace was missed. Difficult negotiations have been ongoing since its inception. The Jewish people are a self-confident, dominant elite. November 1967. General de Gaulle turns this martyred people into conquerors, colonizers, and oppressors of the weak. Accusatory inversion?
De Gaulle spoke about Jews and not Israel. This is religious discrimination. The general did that. After all they have suffered to reclaim their land, he makes them into aggressive conquerors.
All great men make mistakes. But despite all these misfortunes, Jews are not the only ones to suffer these discriminations. Blacks who endure apartheid even make common cause with Jews.
How long will South Africa hold with apartheid?
Mr. President of the United States, thank you for agreeing to abolish racial laws, but you will see, anti-Semites will hide behind anti-Zionism.
Mr. Martin Luther King, your dream will come true, but I hope not this prediction. No one can forget the Shoah in 1968.
From Madrid to Oslo. After signing peace agreements with Egypt and then with Jordan in 1995, Israel and the Palestinian Authority sign a peace agreement with mutual recognition and a 5-year transition period for the independence of a sovereign Palestinian state.
Dad, what is this Jewish village that has settled near Hebron? My friends say they stole our land. Is that true? Should we kill them?
In fact, the world gave us this land, but we refused it because we wanted all of Palestine. The Jews have conquered our land and claim to be able to set up their colonies there.
You came to our land, Palestine, so now you must leave it. Free Palestine. No Jewish presence on this land.
We need to find common ground.
It's Jewish land. You are expropriating us by force. Sharon decided to dismantle the Jewish settlements in Gaza to attempt the experiment of an independent Palestinian state. October 7th will be a great day for resistance. We will send thousands of men to kill, rape, mutilate, massacre as many Jews as possible. I want everything filmed. Let's install terror to make them flee.
Let's slit children's throats in front of their parents and vice versa. The world must not forget what we will do.
Take hostages, and when they come to rescue them, we will emerge from the tunnels to exterminate Saul. With our human shields, the international community will stop them immediately.
October 7, 2023, thousands of young Israelis came to dance at this peace festival on the Gaza border.
The parents of these children had to experience the death of their children in real time. October 7th, the cars of young people who tried to flee the pogrom and were massacred by thousands of terrorists who brutally invaded southern Israel. October 7th, 23. Darkness fell on the rave party where thousands of kids had come to dance at the peace festival at the Gaza border. Bloodthirsty and hate-filled terrorists, heavily armed, perfectly trained, massacred hundreds of innocent, defenseless hundreds of people who had their whole lives ahead of them.
Could we come in for a moment?
This kibbutz on this festive day is still asleep. Dozens of Palestinians from Gaza come to work here every day. Its inhabitants advocate peace and understanding. It represents the pioneering socialist ideal, a fervent peace activist.
If you want your families to see you again, the Zionist entity must surrender. The Jews pervert the scriptures. They are corrupt and malignant. Using our numerous dead, repeating the word genocide, it will eventually work and make people forget their genocide, which creates empathy. Human shields will prevent them from saving the hostages, and the more deaths we have, the more we will mobilize the Arabs in the street. Western governments are terribly afraid of this, and it will force them to put pressure on Israel. We have some useful idiots on site.
We will glorify the martyrs so that the people follow us. We will maintain the discourse on apartheid. In Europe and the USA, they will believe it fervently.
Accusatory inversions work very well. Call Netanyahu a Nazi and Israel a terrorist state, and drag them before the International Criminal Court for crimes against humanity.
I, Khaled Mashal, dream of seeing Palestine liberated from the sea to the Jordan River, free of any Jewish presence. Jews corrupt the scriptures.
How can this tiny piece of the world generate so much hatred? Let us not go astray. The problem is not that of this small piece of land, legitimately reclaimed by the Jews after having been expelled from it. The problem is that of virulent anti-Semitism determined to eradicate any Jewish presence in the Middle East.
The colonies are politically difficult to defend.
In 48 ban and 60 ban there were no colonies, and they already wanted our destruction. These colonies protect Israel, and if we were at peace, we can review everything together. Chief, they are armed. They shot from the rooftops and windows. We have dead and injured.
You assassinate civilians who came to peacefully protest to express their desire to live freely in their country? That's a war crime.
The ICC did not see genocide in Gaza, but war crimes. Indeed, as it is proven that there is no genocidal intention, the ICC no longer has to intervene. From 1 million in 1948 to 8 million today, no one can claim that Israel has a genocidal intent. Every society has criminals, so every war has war crimes, and it is up to a democracy to judge its crimes. The ICC should therefore only judge Hamas war crimes. Hamas is a terrorist group. Every civilian killed in Gaza is a tragedy, but for Hamas, it is a strategy. Despite the human shields and their own assassinations, there are fewer than one civilian killed for every combatant. It is the most moral army in the world. Too many civilians killed, not enough humanitarian aid. When will we stop this war? We must save our hostages, but we always warn civilians and ensure humanitarian aid. Israel claims to have delivered enough food. This would be diverted by Hamas and sold on the black market. The ICC does not deny it, and no images show Gazans in malnutrition, similar to that of Biafrans or detainees in camps. Propaganda. Who is lying?
Our ancestors were unjust. They massacred the Indians, enslaved the blacks, exploited colonized lands, and abandoned these people to poverty. Yes, wake up. We are guilty of these crimes and must repair what our parents did. Long live wokeness.
Like Napoleon, we must take down all these slavers and condemn them in absentia. This is cancel culture. We must be radical and accept no compromise. Why not list this among their faults while keeping all the positive aspects that have made our history?
Revisiting history to reverse things instead of simply rebalancing them. Strange idea. Let's repair millennia of injustice and support those who throw homosexuals off rooftops. Let's support those who enslave women, or rather liberate these populations from their tyrant.
Enslaved, under guardianship, stoned or married off in childhood. Such are still practices upheld by the Muslim Brotherhood. An anti-Semitic part of the French left calls for the destruction of Israel and the pursuit of Jews.
He's told me that Jews and Arabs have the same genes, that all men are equal. So why all this hatred?
Education is the only remedy. These children are raised in hatred of Jews by the imams, who thus enslave their children and maintain their power over the people.
This conflict is purely anti-Semitic. It has never been a territorial conflict. Its intention is to cleanse this land of any Jewish presence. There has never been an Israeli-Palestinian conflict. The conflict has never been imported into France or other countries either. There is violent anti-Semitism initiated by the two major religions of the world. In wanting to kill the father figure, the two major religions sowed the seeds of anti-Semitism. While under the actions of Benedict XVI and John XIII, Christianity nearly ended this contamination. Radical Islam, preached by the imams who have increased their power over the masses, is responsible for this situation, aided by irresponsible political opportunists.
You must confirm that anti-Zionism is a racist offense that calls for the destruction of Israel. Israel has the right to exist. Anti-Zionism opposition to the existence of the State of Israel, should therefore be criminally punishable in all democracies. I condemn UNDRA to correct its school manuals and ask all democracies to monitor the school manuals of religious teachings and, if necessary, to condemn all forms of religious discrimination.
Release the hostages, and you will have a ceasefire. 2. Choose justice and not the economic value of 1.5 billion versus 15 million. 3. Accept that we exist. Then a lasting peace will be possible in this region.
75% of young Muslims prefer Sharia over the Republic. Is a woman an inferior being?
A good Muslim in France must respect 1. Freedom of religion. 2. Equality of sexes. 3. Fraternity, with Jews and Christians in particular. Let's dream, Semitic brother, of seeing the negotiations lead to 2 states living in peace without theocracy.